Joining me today is Victor Gao Zhikai, Vice President of Beijing-based Center for China and Globalization. And welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Chinese economy. And the Western media wrote many articles to predict the Chinese economy. They say Chinese economy is getting worse this year. And they also gave the facts such as the flagging domestic confidence, the low foreign investment, but high unemployment. Based on your research, will the Chinese economy continue to go down, or it has already touched the bottom and on the way up?
First of all, ever since China started the reform and opening up to the outside world in 1978, there have been Western scholars or media outlets which kept predicting about the collapse of the Chinese economy for all these years. So it's not surprising at all if there are noises about major dire predictions about the Chinese economy. I think it has been high time for the collapse of these so-called theories or predictions about China collapse. On the other hand, it is true that China is faced with both opportunities and challenges for its domestic and international economic development. Why? Because, first of all, for China's reform, there is no ready-made written script. Every year, every day, every minute, I would say, China need to improvise, China need to continue to reform, to deal with the circumstances as they present. And therefore, dealing with new challenges is not surprising at all. It is part of China's reform process. Now, for the year 2024, I would say yes, indeed. If you look at the challenge side, there are lots of challenges, especially the wanton and willful hostility demonstrated by the United States, joined by quite a few Western countries, which caused a lot of headwind against China. And China is faced with new circumstances, both at home and abroad. Now, you talk about employment. Yes. I would say for every country, every economy, providing meaningful employment, especially for the younger generation, is always a challenge. For China, every year now, we have more than 10 million college graduates. We hope every one of them would have meaningful, high-paying jobs. And the reality is that the economy in China is readjusting. It is going through tremendous amount of transformation. And as far as every one of these new college graduates are concerned, some of them may not find a meaningful job immediately, so they may need to find a job in less desirable sectors or focus areas, for example. I would say philosophically, that's not surprising at all. It would actually test the willpower and the caliber of the college graduates themselves. I would say providing meaningful jobs for the younger generation in particular will be a top priority for China as a whole, for the Chinese government, and for enterprises of all kinds. You also mentioned the bottoming up of the Chinese economy. For many decades, since 1978, the Chinese economy on average has been growing by about 10% or 8%, which is probably unprecedented in human history for such high growth and such long sustainable period of time. Now, the size of the Chinese economy is already the largest in the world if we use purchasing power parity, the second largest if we use official exchange rate. With a much larger base for the economy, additional growth may be slower in percentage term, that's for sure. But if you look at the annual new addition to the Chinese economy, it is still very robust. So I would say you need to be very philosophical and very balanced in looking at China. Now, the Chinese economy, in real essence, in my best judgment, is going through tremendous amount of transformation. The top Chinese leader and the Chinese government have been using the term new qualitative productivity, which sounds like a tongue twister, but it actually is very profound. That means China need to put a premium on science and technology, on innovation, on creativity, and push the edge of the envelope rather than relying on the traditional model of economic development. In that sense, I would say the Chinese economy is kind of in a binary mode. On the one side of the equation, we have traditional ways of doing business in agriculture, industry, traditional trade of all kinds, both domestic as well as international. And that has been the backbone of the Chinese economy for the past 46 years or so. However, relying on the traditional way of doing things is no longer sufficient. We need to really climb up the ladder of science and technology and try to excel in all ways, focusing on science and technology, innovation and creativity. Now, in this sense, there is another side of the Chinese economy, which I would say based on new qualitative productivity. Meaning, if you look at China, you keep seeing lots of these new ideas, new industries, new businesses, new model of doing things, new paradigms coming up. Therefore, when I personally look at the Chinese economy, I have some dissatisfactions, concerns on the one hand, but I also have a lot of excitement to see all these new paradigms coming up now. So in that sense, I'm very excited about the economic situation in China, while concerns, which are multiple, of course, need to be taken care of. But if anyone says China will collapse, I will tell him or tell her, your crazy idea will collapse and China will stand firm.